My name is Raina, and I learned the hard way that family isn't always who protects you. Sometimes it's who breaks you the deepest. When my own parents abandoned my 7-year-old daughter, Lila, alone at a crowded airport because she cried about sitting alone, something inside me shattered forever. That moment forced me to confront years of favoritism, cruelty disguised as tradition, and love that was never truly love at all. What followed was a fight for justice, for healing, and for my child's sense of safety. Where are you watching from? Comment your location below, and don't forget to subscribe. The day everything changed began in the most ordinary way. I was sitting in a conference room under buzzing fluorescent lights while my supervisor droned on about performance metrics and departmental cooperation. I wasn't particularly paying attention, but I was doing a convincing impression of someone who cared. Then my phone buzzed against the table. Normally, I would have ignored it in a meeting, but I glanced down just in case. It was a message from my family's group chat. I expected a picture of my niece or my mother reminding us all about Sunday dinner. Instead, I saw a message that made every muscle in my body go cold. Come get her. We're boarding now. A second message appeared right after. Don't make us feel guilty. She needs to learn a lesson. My family had left my 7-year-old daughter, Lila, alone at the airport. I didn't reply. I didn't ask what happened. I simply stood up, my chair scraping loudly across the floor, grabbed my bag, and walked straight out. If my boss said anything, I didn't hear it. To understand this moment, you need to understand that my family didn't become this cruel overnight. They had been telling me who they were for years, and I had just been too hopeful or too desperate to see it clearly. Lila has always been gentle, thoughtful, more likely to watch than to speak, more likely to read than to run around screaming like the rest of the kids. But my family didn't value quiet. They valued loud, dramatic, attention-grabbing energy, the kind my niece Sophie, my sister Marina's daughter, had in abundance. Sophie was the golden child, the one my mother bragged about, the one whose school photo hung in oversized frames in my parents' hallway, the one who got special treatment disguised as normal grandparent affection. Last Christmas was the moment I should have realized just how deep the favoritism ran. Sophie unwrapped a tablet, a brand new bicycle with tassels on the handlebars, and an entire collection of designer dolls with matching outfits. The living room floor was a festival of color and glitter. Lila, sitting right beside her, received 3 books and a plain gray sweater. Just one sweater. She tried to smile, tried to be gracious, but I saw how her excitement dimmed. I saw her look down at her lap and swallow hard. When I pulled my mother aside later, gently trying not to accuse, she said, "Oh, sweetheart, Lila just isn't the type of child who needs flashy things. She's quiet. Books are better for her personality." Her personality. That was always the excuse. They didn't want to waste their effort on a child who didn't demand attention. Then came Sophie's 8th birthday party. They rented a full event hall, hired an actress dressed as a fairy tale princess, arranged group games, balloons, catered food, everything sparkling and magical. Lila watched with awe the whole time. A few months later, Lila turned 7. I asked my parents if they wanted to help us plan something small, but meaningful, maybe a picnic, maybe a trip to the zoo. My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, we just did so much for Sophie's party. Everyone is exhausted. Let's just do cake during Sunday dinner." And so, Lila's birthday celebration was a store-bought cake plopped onto the dining room table between dishes of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes. She didn't even get to blow out her candles because Sophie leaned forward and did it first while everyone laughed. Lila just stared at the cake, silently. I should have protected her then, but years of being criticized and minimized had taught me to question myself. Was I being dramatic? Was I expecting too much? Maybe this was just how things were. So when my parents insisted that Lila join them on their family trip to Florida, my parents, Marina and her husband, my sister Tessa and her boyfriend, and all the kids, I hesitated. My pulse thudded in my throat. But then my father announced it at Sunday dinner, loud and cheerful. We're all going to Disney World. Lila's face lit up like someone had switched on a lamp inside her. She turned to me with this glowing hope that broke me. Mom, please? I've never been anywhere like that. Everyone stared at me, waiting for my reaction. Don't be overprotective, Marina said with a knowing smirk. My mother leaned back with folded arms. We raised you. We can handle one child. I should have said no. I should have trusted the pit in my stomach, the memory of all the little heartbreaks they had already handed to Lila. But I wanted her to have something magical, for once. So I agreed. Before they left, I made them sit with me at my kitchen table. You promise you'll take care of her? I asked, not angry, just desperate. My mother frowned like I'd insulted her. Of course we will. What do you think we are? I handed them $2,900 in cash for airfare, tickets, meals, souvenirs, everything. My mother took the money and tucked it into her wallet without so much as a thank you. The morning they left, Lila wore her favorite sunflower dress and her backpack decorated with stickers. I hugged her tight. I love you, I whispered. I'll bring you something magical, she said. She was excited, so hopeful. I watched the car pull away and felt something in my chest twist. I should have listened to that feeling. I couldn't travel with them because I had a mandatory project launch at work, a deadline I couldn't move. I told myself it would be fine. But as I stood in that conference room hours later, reading the messages on my phone, I realized my worst fear had become real. They had bought themselves first-class seats. They had bought Lila a ticket in economy. When she cried about being scared to sit alone, they decided she was being dramatic and left her. They walked onto the plane and let the doors close behind them. I left work and drove like a person possessed. I parked at the curb without caring if my car got towed and sprinted through the terminal. And then I saw her. 2 officers stood around a bench, and in the center was my little girl curled into herself, holding her backpack like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Her face was blotchy from crying, her body trembling. Lila! I yelled. She looked up. Mommy, she choked and ran into my arms. I held her. I held her like I would never let go again. I held Lila tightly as she shook in my arms, her small fingers gripping the fabric of my coat, like she was afraid I might disappear too. Her breathing came in quick, uneven gasps, the kind that only happen when someone has cried past the point of sound. A police officer stepped forward, his expression serious but gentle. His badge read, Officer Ramirez. Ma'am, are you Lila's mother? He asked. I nodded, unable to speak. My voice was somewhere buried underneath the wave of rage and heartbreak crashing inside me. Officer Ramirez glanced down at Lila and softened slightly. She's safe now. We've been with her since the moment your family boarded. He didn't have to say the word abandoned. It hung in the air anyway. I managed to force my voice out. They texted me. They were leaving her. They just left her. He nodded grimly. We saw the messages. He gestured to a female officer nearby, Officer Lee, who crouched down to Lila's level. Sweetheart, would you like some water? Maybe some crackers? But Lila only buried herself deeper against me, her face pressed to my chest. I stroked her hair, whispering softly, I'm here. I've got you. You're safe. But even as I said it, I knew the damage was done. Safety, once broken, is not something that returns easily. They escorted us to a small security office away from the crowds. Lila sat in my lap, clinging to my shirt with silent, exhausted tears. I explained everything to the officers. How my parents insisted she come. How I had trusted them. The $3,000 I had given them. How they had bought themselves first-class seats while putting Lila alone in economy. How, when she cried, they told her she needed to learn to be independent. How they walked away from her, as if she was luggage they didn't feel like carrying. Officer Ramirez's jaw clenched. Ma'am, I need to be clear. This is considered child endangerment and abandonment. An airport is one of the most dangerous places to leave a child alone. There are trafficking risks, predators, confusion. She could have disappeared within minutes. I felt sick, truly physically sick. I pulled Lila closer, kissing her hair, realizing that this wasn't some family dispute. This was something monstrous. The officers had already alerted authorities at the arrival airport. My family was stopped when they landed in Orlando. They were being questioned. Good. Let them look confused. Let them panic. Let them answer for what they chose. Not what they accidentally allowed to happen, but what they chose. Lila eventually cried herself into a dull, exhausted silence, her head heavy against me. She still wouldn't let go of my shirt. An officer brought her animal crackers and apple juice, placing them gently on the desk near us, but she didn't touch them. I signed paperwork with one hand while keeping the other wrapped around her. Hours passed. My phone buzzed relentlessly, calls, messages, notifications, all from numbers tied to people who had betrayed us. I didn't open a single one. When we finally made it home, Lila fell asleep in the car, her face puffy and streaked with dried tears. I carried her inside, tucked her gently into bed, and sat beside her. Her tiny hand rested on my sleeve even in sleep. She didn't trust that I'd still be there if she let go. I watched her chest rise and fall, and the rage built inside me like a storm. How dare they treat her like she was less? How dare they make her feel disposable? How dare they damage something so pure, so gentle, so innocent? The next morning, Lila woke up quietly. Too quietly. She didn't ask for breakfast. She didn't put on cartoons. She didn't smile. She sat on the couch, hugging her stuffed rabbit, eyes empty in a way that made my heart ache. I sat next to her carefully. Baby, do you want to talk about what happened? She didn't look at me. She just whispered, I don't ever want to see them again. Her voice was small but certain. I swallowed hard. You don't have to. I promise. You never have to see them again if you don't want to. She looked at me then, eyes red and tired. Really? I nodded. Really? We spent the day together. I called in sick to work. We made pancakes, watched her favorite movies, wrapped ourselves in blankets, and tried to breathe again. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating, buzzing with incoming calls and voicemails and messages. I didn't check any of them until Lila was in the bath that evening. Then, with a slow breath, I opened the message thread. My mother, answer your phone. My father, this is being blown out of proportion. My sister Marina, Lila is fine. Stop making drama. My sister Tessa, you're ruining the family over nothing. My mother again. Tell the police this was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. They called abandoning a 7-year-old child alone in a busy airport a misunderstanding. My father sent one more message. Family doesn't do this to family. I actually laughed. A cold, humorless sound. Because apparently, according to them, family can abandon a child, but family cannot hold anyone accountable for it. That night, after Lila was asleep, I called my closest friend, Nora. The moment I told her what happened, she was furious. They left her, alone, at the airport. Her disbelief echoed my own. Whatever you decide to do, she said, voice steady. I'm behind you. The next morning, a detective from Orlando called to explain the legal situation. My family had been questioned and released, but charges were being filed: child abandonment, child endangerment. They wouldn't likely see jail time as first offenders, but they would face court, fines, probation, and a no-contact order. No contact was the first thing that felt like air in my lungs. Good. They didn't deserve to speak her name. Days passed. Lila started therapy immediately. The therapist, Dr. Rowan, was patient, warm, and slow, exactly what Lila needed. Still, progress came in tiny, delicate steps. Lila panicked if I was out of sight. She had nightmares. She startled when someone closed a door too loudly. My family caused this, and they would answer for it. Weeks passed slowly, heavy with court dates, therapy appointments, and silence from the people who once claimed to love us. I changed my phone number, blocked them all, and deleted their contacts because I refused to let their voices seep back into our home. Lila began sleeping beside me for a while, her small hand always reaching to make sure I was still there. Every time she flinched in her dreams, every time her breath hitched, I felt the fire inside me burn hotter. This wasn't going to fade with time. This was a wound that demanded accountability. The first court appearance finally came. I arranged for Nora to stay with Lila, knowing I needed to face this without her seeing any of it. The courthouse was cold, all metal and echoing steps. My parents sat together with Marina and Tessa beside them, all neatly dressed, their faces pulled into somber, pitiful expressions. My mother's eyes were swollen as if she had been crying for days, but it didn't move me. I had cried too, but for a child they had harmed, not for themselves. The judge reviewed the charges. My parents and sisters were formally charged with child abandonment and child endangerment, just as the detective had said. The courtroom was silent except for the shuffling of papers and the scratch of pens. When the judge asked how they pled, my parents' lawyer stood and said, "Not guilty, Your Honor." Of course, they would never admit what they did. To them, admission was worse than the act itself. The judge granted a temporary no-contact order preventing them from reaching out to Lila in any form. When the words left his mouth, I felt something loosen in my spine. Something inside me stood up straighter. As we walked out of the courtroom, my mother hurried toward me, her voice cracking. "Raina, please, we can fix this. Don't do this to us." I didn't look at her. "I'm not doing anything to you," I said. "You did this, and now you're just finally facing the truth of it." My father's voice followed behind me as I stepped into the parking lot. "You're destroying this family." I stopped and turned back. "No," I said clearly, "I'm saving my daughter." And then I walked away. After that, I thought maybe they would accept responsibility quietly, but I underestimated their entitlement. A week later, a letter arrived from their lawyer, claiming that because the trip didn't happen as planned, I needed to return the $2,900 I had given them. I read the letter 3 times, stunned into silence, before laughter spilled out of me. Sharp, disbelieving, bitter. They abandoned my daughter, traumatized her, and now wanted me to pay them. It was almost impressive in a delusional, morally bankrupt way. I contacted an attorney named Melanie Brooks, who came highly recommended. When I told her everything, including the letter demanding money, she leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowing with controlled anger. "We're going to file a counterclaim," she said, "for the $2,900 plus therapy costs, plus emotional damages. They received funds for your child's care and did the opposite of providing care. This isn't just morally wrong. It's legally actionable." Relief washed over me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. What they did had consequences. The criminal case progressed first. The courtroom was fuller this time. reporters, extended family, strangers drawn to the spectacle of a family tearing itself apart under legal scrutiny. The prosecution displayed the text messages on a large screen. The words lit up across the wall like a confession carved in stone. Come get her. We're boarding now. Don't make us feel guilty. She needs to learn a lesson. My mother cried when those words were read aloud. But they weren't tears of regret. They were tears of being seen. I testified calmly because the truth didn't require drama. I spoke about the trust one placed in them, how I had believed they would love Lila the way I loved her, how I gave them money to make the trip magical for her, how they chose to leave her, alone, scared, surrounded by strangers, tears soaking into her princess backpack. I spoke about the nightmares, the fear, the way Lila checks for me in the night, the way she asks every single day, "Are you staying with me?" When the prosecutor asked how all of this changed us, I felt tears rise, but didn't let them fall. My daughter lost a piece of her safety. I said, the part that tells children the world is stable, and the people who love them won't leave. The courtroom was silent, except for someone quietly shifting in their seat. I didn't look at my family. I didn't need to. My mother took the stand after me, her voice trembling, holding tissues in both hands like props. She claimed it was all an accident, a misunderstanding, that she thought I was nearby, that Lila wasn't actually upset, but the text messages spoke louder than her tears ever could. The prosecutor didn't let her wash the truth away. What lesson, he asked, was a 7-year-old supposed to learn from being abandoned at an airport? She had no answer. It took the jury less than 2 hours. Guilty. All of them. The sentencing came weeks later. They weren't sent to jail, but they received probation, community service, mandatory parenting classes, fines, and most importantly, a permanent no-contact order protecting Lila. They couldn't call, write, show up, ask about her, or send gifts. Nothing. They were legally shut out of her life. As we left the courtroom, my mother tried again. "Raina, please, we can still fix this." I stopped, looked her directly in the eyes, and spoke with more clarity than I had ever spoken in my life. You don't get access to someone you hurt just because you regret the consequences. Her face crumpled. I walked away. The civil case came last. It was quick. The judge took one look at the financial breakdown and awarded me everything: the $2,900 returned, full reimbursement for therapy costs, and court fees. Their lawyer tried to argue. The judge shut him down. A month later, the check arrived. I booked 2 plane tickets. Just 2. When I told Lila we were going to Disney together, just the 2 of us, she stared at me like she was afraid to believe it. "Just us," she whispered. I nodded. "Just us. Always us." And I meant it. We went. We wore matching Minnie Mouse ears. We stood in line for every ride she pointed to. We ate too many snacks and stayed out past bedtime. And when we watched the fireworks explode over the castle, she leaned against me with her head on my shoulder, not out of fear, but comfort. She whispered, "Mom, this is the magic I wanted." And I held her close, knowing none of this was the magic of Disney. This was the magic of being chosen. Always. Every time. No matter what. When we got back from Disney, something in our home felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just safer. Lila walked from room to room as if checking that the world would still hold her gently. She unpacked her new plush toys slowly, setting them in careful places in her room. She placed a small stuffed Minnie Mouse at the head of her bed, and then turned to me, uncertain. "Do you think it's okay if she stays here?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "This is her home, now too." Lila nodded, and the smallest smile tugged at her lips. Healing didn't happen all at once. Trauma rarely leaves in a single exhale. It stays woven into quiet moments, into pauses, into the space between thoughts. But each day, Lila reclaimed something, small, almost invisible victories. One morning, she woke before me and turned on the cartoons herself. Another day, she asked if she could go outside and draw chalk pictures on the sidewalk. Another day, she laughed, really laughed, at a silly joke I made. Every one of those moments felt like watching a flower grow back after frost. I knew she was healing when she stopped checking to see if I left the room. Meanwhile, my family lingered like the echo of a sound long after the noise was gone. Their absence was as loud as their presence once was. Word spread among extended relatives, neighbors, old family friends. Some whispered sympathy. Most whispered judgment. People called me dramatic, hysterical, cruel, ungrateful. And every time, I simply blocked another number, deleted another message, walked away from another conversation. I refused to justify protecting my daughter. You don't explain oxygen. You just breathe. One afternoon, I was picking up groceries when I saw my aunt, my mother's older sister, by the produce section. She stopped when she saw me, her hand tightening around a bag of apples. "Raina," she said softly, "your mother is heartbroken." I didn't respond. She tried again. "She cries every night. She can't sleep. She says she lost her daughter and her granddaughter." I met her gaze, calm but unshaken. "She didn't lose us," I said. "She threw us away." My aunt blinked, tears filling her eyes. "Can't you forgive her?" I shook my head. Forgiveness is for accidents. This was a choice. I walked away, groceries in hand, heart steady. Months passed. Seasons shifted. Lila's therapist, Dr. Rowan, guided her gently through fear, memory, and trust. One day after therapy, as we sat in the car with the windows open, listening to birds outside, Lila asked, "Why did they leave me?" There it was, the question I had been waiting for, the one that required truth and delicacy in equal measure. I took a slow breath. Some people, I said carefully, love the idea of family more than the responsibility of it. They loved how it felt to be in charge. They loved being the center, but loving someone means protecting them,